Welcome to Surthrival podcast, the podcast about befriending grief. I'm your host, Stacia Gaines. Today we're going to talk about the mind. In a very popular book from the 1950s, Norman Vincent Peale wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. It was extremely popular and is still popular today. One of the quotes that I found from this book last night that I thought really resonated with what I wanted to talk about today is he said, "Our happiness depends on the habit of mind we cultivate." I'll read that again. Our happiness depends on the habit of mind we cultivate. So I really want to talk today about cultivating healthy mind habits. I think often those of us who are grieving or suffering loss, it can be really difficult to focus on positive thoughts, happy things. And we've talked a lot about expressing the feelings that don't feel so good, but I really want to take a look today at those things that can help us move forward. And I'm going to start, I'll tell you about the 5 healthy mind habits we're going to talk about. The first one is learning and brain development. The second, avoiding negative thought traps. Number 3, dwelling on good things. Number 4, living in gratitude. And number 5, dreaming. So we're going to start with something very critical and foundational, and that is learning and brain development. What healthy brain habits do you employ today? One of the things that I do, and many of my friends do, is we do New York Times puzzles. So every day I do connections, Wordle, spelling bee, strands, and the mini crossword puzzle. And with one of my friends, we actually share our connections, success or failure, every day. And we just text it to one another. So it's actually the game Connections is providing a connection with my friend in Savannah, Georgia. So you might consider doing Sudoku, or it might be the vocabulary word of the day, but just doing something that keeps your brain active and healthy. Another thing that my daughter suggested, she said, really you should do brain things that help you to unplug, relax, recenter. So one of the things that I do is I do the Bible app every morning, and it has a verse of the day. It has a speaker who talks about that verse. And then there are not only just information, just thoughts about the verse, but then they'll also have kind of a prayer time. So that's one of the things that I do every day to kind of recenter and refocus. You might get a vocabulary word of the day to learn new words. You might get a quote of the day to focus on thinking about a quote from someone famous. Reading. I love to read. I read all kinds of things, and at any point I have multiple books going on. You could read for escape, for entertainment, for learning, following your curiosity. But learning something new keeps your brain active. Thinking about things that are not just about your sorrow is really helpful. Let's talk about avoiding unhealthy brain habits. Can we talk about social media? Yes, some of us have unhealthy relationships with Instagram. You know what I'm talking about? Some of you do. I do. My daughter, I was talking to her, she actually, I'm giving her episode credit as my content editor today. So, Madison Norwood, this is for you. But she introduced me to the terms death scrolling or screen rotting. Ouch. Sometimes we can find ourselves just like it's been 40 minutes and you're like, what have I been doing? So many of us may struggle with the self-discipline of saying, okay, I'm only going to do this for 20 minutes once a day. I'm not a social media hater. I'm really not. I mean, I use it a lot in advertising my podcast and my work and just sharing pictures of the three most precious grandchildren on the planet. And I love hearing about my friends, what they're doing, their grandchildren, their experiences, their travel. But let's face it, sometimes we can tend to compare ourselves with our friends. And you know what? Hardly any of us post on Instagram or Facebook how awful our lives are. I mean, occasionally you've probably heard that from me. But most of the time, people are posting their best curated, vetted self out into the world of the internet. So if you struggle with comparison, you may want to think about how you can limit your exposure. This can also lead to discontentment with our own lives. Oh, they just went to Italy. I've always wanted to go to Italy. Why can't I afford to go to Italy? So if it's putting you in a state of discontentment, that's a warning that you might need to cease and desist. The other thing that my daughter said is anyone can put anything on the internet. I mean, that sounds kind of basic, but it's true. And so I think you have to really be cautious about what you see. And look for truth with a capital T. You have a choice as to what you take in, what you believe, and how or if you respond. So use the internet for good, but be careful that it's not becoming an unhealthy brain habit for you. So that's number one. Strong brain health, we need to develop healthy habits and avoid unhealthy habits. So we kind of talked about not dwelling on these negative things that are not serving you well. You have a choice. So I want to talk about avoiding negative thought traps. Now, I'll be honest, this is something I learned in therapy. But you have probably experienced this. You get worried about something, you get frustrated about something, and you cannot get out of it. It's a downward spiral, and you can't quit thinking about how angry or frustrated or sad you are about X. I have a family member who always sees the negative. I mean, in every aspect of his life. It affects the way he views himself, the way he views others, work, his whole world. And y'all, it breaks my heart because I see him stuck in these negative patterns that don't serve him well. But we can all fall into these negative thought traps, especially when you've experienced great loss. You can feel hopeless. You can feel like your life is never going to get better, that there's nothing ahead for you. And so if you find yourself in these thought traps, let's employ some of these things and see if you can't get yourself unstuck. I'll give you an example. Lately, I've had a lot of worries about my finances. You may have too. There's a lot of things going on with the stock market and uncertainty and inflation. And I have some other circumstances that are kind of adding to this. And so like I would get all worried about it, but let me just kind of tell you one of the secrets of getting out of these negative thought patterns. You've got to intentionally dig out. First of all, observe your thoughts. Notice the negative patterns. I guarantee you they are not serving you well. And then find a way to redirect to a more balanced take. And I'll give you the example with my finances. So basically, when you're looking at finances, you can either spend less, make more, or both, right? So I first started looking at how I could reduce my spending, deciding what's important. What could I live without? What was I not even using? So I looked at reducing my spending. The second thing I can do is increase my income. So I've been working extra hard to find new clients, advertise my services, make appointments with people to talk about things, because I'm not going to get new business unless I go out and seek it. And then the third thing that I've done is I've really sought help in those areas where I have some knowledge deficits. Like I've got a great financial planner who is helping me figure out how to navigate my world now, but also for retirement. I need to find someone who can help me figure out buying benefits. That's something I've never done. But by taking those negative thoughts, those fears, those worries, and coming up with a plan, looking at the thoughts, noticing the negative pattern, and redirecting for a more balanced approach, you can kind of regulate your emotions. And that's not to say I'm not still worried about my finances. It doesn't erase worry. It just gives you positive steps to move forward so you're not stuck in the negative thought pattern. We've talked about reframing your thoughts on different episodes, but reframing your thoughts is actually just taking a different perspective or looking at things with a different lens. The circumstances haven't changed. They're the same circumstances. You're just looking at them from a different perspective. And the last thing is really good news. Did you know that our brains have great elasticity? Whatever we are thinking or feeling or knowing right now, we have the ability to change that. Isn't that good news? We're not stuck. Our brains can change, but we have to do something for momentum and get it moving in that direction. So that leads me to my next thing. One of the best ways you can do this is focus your energy on the good. Okay, I want to give you an example right now. Do not think about pink elephants. Do not think about pink elephants. Got it? How you doing? You are probably thinking about not thinking about pink elephants, right? Do you know the secret? You have to replace the thought of pink elephant with something different. You have to think about something else. You can't not think about what I'm telling you not to think about. You have to replace that thought. You may have heard, you are what you think. I think that's true, but it's also not true. You are not everything you think. I was listening last night to a podcast by Jerry Henderson, and he was listening to Michael Singer on a book in a cross-country journey, and Michael Singer said, "You are not what you think." But Sasha, I thought you were telling me that that what you think matters. It does. But think about the things you have told yourself when you made a major mistake. Have you ever said to yourself, "Golly, that was stupid. You're stupid"? You're incompetent. How could you do that? You're insensitive. How could you say that? You're unworthy. You're untrustworthy. Haven't you said those things to yourself? Does that make them true? No. You may have made an insensitive comment. You may have been untrustworthy. You may have made a mistake. You may have not been competent for a certain task, but that does not mean that you are those things. And sometimes we believe what our brain tells us. You know what our brain's main job is? It is to keep us safe. So our brains are constantly solving problems, even those things that you and I might think could be a problem. So our brain works overtime. And if we don't have a problem at hand, it will come up with one. Do you know what I'm talking about? You're just thinking, life is good. I've got a milkshake. Everything is great. And then you're like, oh my goodness, all the calories that I just took in, I'm probably going to gain 5 pounds from this milkshake. I have no self-control. I can't believe I just had this milkshake. I'm fat, I'm ugly, blah, blah, blah. Those things are not true. But our brain, it's always working to keep us safe. So we have to take charge of our thoughts. And I think the best way to change your thinking from pink elephants to whatever else is to focus on good things. So the next thing is dwelling on good things. One of my favorite Bible verses is from Philippians 4:8. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. That's from the Word of God, people. You do become your thoughts, but you have the ability to focus on good things, on things that serve you well. The light in the dark illuminates the goodness. It can always be found, even in the darkest places. Listen and read things that are life-bringing, that are uplifting. I love Rick Carley's post on Instagram. Often his stories are about people overcoming challenges, and they're always inspirational and true. So follow more people like that. You have a choice about what you put in your brain, what you read, TV you watch, the movies you see, social media, especially those that you follow, even the friends you hang out with. You may find that there are some friends in this season of your life that are not serving you well. That doesn't mean you have to cut them out, but maybe you spend less time with them. Maybe you listen to them less. You have a choice. You get to make decisions about what is best for your mental health and your mind. This brings me to the next to the last point that has been really critical in my own grieving, and that is to live a life of gratitude. This is the habit. Did you hear me? It's the habit of recognizing and capturing thoughts, looking for what is good. It is a habit that is transformational. Actively look for things to be grateful for. These can be large, like, I woke up today and I'm in good health. And actually, yesterday I went to the doctor and I got a steroid shot and a Z-Pack, And I was so glad to wake up this morning and not be as congested as I was for the last 2 weeks. I am really grateful for that. I'm grateful that that clinic was open on a Sunday afternoon where I could get things going. This could be small. Often I'm thankful for the smell of coffee in the morning. It just smells so good and wakes me up, and I love to sit and read my coffee while I read that verse of the day that I told you about. Also, I want to tell you, and I've said this many times on the podcast before, write them down. There are a lot of different ways to do this. I think Oprah did this several years ago. She encouraged people to have a gratitude jar. And you get slips of paper and you'd write down something you were thankful for every day and you'd put it in the jar. My therapist gave me the same challenge not too long ago. And then she said, after 2 weeks, pull one out. And remember, other people have stones they call their Ebenezer stones, and they write on a rock things they're thankful for. One of the most creative things that I've ever done is I had a gratitude volley with a friend by text for a little over a year. Every single day, this friend and I would text one another something we were thankful for. It might be the grin of her great niece. For me, it might be snuggles with my dog Shelby. But every single day, we sent each other something we were thankful for. We got to know each other this way, but it also kind of forced both of us to really look for things that we were thankful for. There was an accountability there. So that was a lot of fun. And if you have somebody and maybe you're both struggling with staying in a positive state and being grateful, consider a gratitude volley. The last thing I want to talk about this in living in gratitude is right after my husband Matt died, my spiritual mentor said, I think it was the day after he died, maybe 2 days. She said, Stacia, write down the mercies of God. Write them down. Because I was telling her about all the ways that God had been faithful throughout the time before Matt's death and since he died. She said, write them down. Write down the mercies of God. So I brought with me the journal that I had at that time, and I thought I would just share a few of them. I put down that I was thankful that God sent red cardinals to my bird feeder. I wrote down that I was so thankful, and I considered it a mercy of God that I had 2 weeks at the beach after Matt's death to grieve and to think. I thanked him that I was already a member of women's life group at my church, that I didn't have to reconnect with new people as a single. I thanked God that I was already in therapy. I'd done a lot of the work before Matt died, and I was so thankful for that. I was thankful for all the people that provided really critical information around the business of death, particularly the chaplain from the sheriff's department who told me about the low cost at a particular funeral home of cremation. I mean, that saved us so much money and stress. I thanked him for the books that people gave me or that I found on grief. These were really, really helpful to me. And by the way, many of these books are on my website, surthrivalpodcast.com. So if you find yourself needing a book on a certain topic that might help you through, please check that out, those resources out. I also thanked God for the superpower he gave me to be decisive in those early days. Okay, y'all, I'm not by nature a super decisive person. I'm like, well, we could do this, we could do that. But I am not kidding. Like right after Matt died, I had this superpower to know exactly what I wanted and needed and who to ask for help. It was miraculous, and I recognized that as something I should be grateful for, and I was. And you know what? Because I wrote these things down, today I'm sharing them with you. So writing things down, recording things, allows you to look back, and who knows? You may be doing a podcast one day. You just never know. Noticing forces you to look for the good. And this is critical when you're grieving. It is so easy to just spiral down into negativity. It changes your thought pattern. Remember, you have an elastic brain, one that can change and grow. You've just got to put good things into it. The last thing I want to talk about is dreaming. I actually wrote a blog post about this last week. It was specifically about bucket lists. And I thought, bucket lists, those are kind of cliche. But you know what bucket lists really are? They are dreaming. They're looking into the future at potential for things that you would get joy out of. Dreaming is important for hope. If you have lost hope, you may struggle with dreaming about the future. It's about the anticipation of good things to come. And it reminds us, y'all, that even though we've lost, life is not over. There are good things to come. One thing I want to say about a bucket list is it's probably to go into it with realization that you're not going to do them all. That's okay. To me, the purpose of a bucket list is not to make a list of all the things you are absolutely going to do. It's about dreaming. It's about thinking about what you might like to do. I'll give you a really good example. I turned 60 this year. And last year, at some point, I thought, you know what I'm going to do for my 60th birthday? I am going to go on a Mediterranean cruise. I'm going to go to Spain and Italy and Greece and Croatia. And I dreamed for months whether I was going to do it on a small sailing ship or a Viking cruise. But I dreamed and I dreamed and I looked at pictures and I looked at itineraries. You know what? I'm not going this year. I really can't afford it. Back to the finances. My friends had the most amazing 60th birthday hoop-de-da that anybody has ever had. And that was so fun, so rewarding. I got to spend it with all my friends. I hope that I get to go on this trip in the next few years. But the dream of it served me well for more than 12 months. So I encourage you, take time to dream. Have a dream of living in an old house one day. So sometimes I look at real estate and see if there are any houses that meet those dreams of mine. I haven't found it yet, but I haven't given up the dream. So, our happiness depends on the habit of mind we cultivate. Employ learning and brain development. Avoid negative thought traps. Dwell on good things. Live in gratitude and dream. Thank you for listening to Surthrival, the podcast about befriending grief. My hope is that something you've learned today has piqued your interest and you can take a baby step in your own healing journey. I would love to hear from you. To send me a message or even tell me your story, go to surthrivalpodcast.com. If you'd like to book me as a speaker, you can also do that through the Contact Me section of my website. Please follow me and tell your friends.